But it's time now for the big story, and as pressure grows on Israel to call a ceasefire, or at least pause its response to the October the 7th attacks in order to allow aid to get into Gaza, and with criticism of Israel's response from many politicians and public figures in this country and around the world, are Hamas winning the PR battle? Has this medieval terror group managed against the odds to achieve the moral high ground? And how dangerous might that be for both sides in the conflict? Let's speak to Sohail Ahmed, who is a student at the University of Cambridge and a former Hamas supporter who has been de-radicalised and now condemns the organisation. In a recent tweet, he said the following: "In my experience, most Muslims haven't grasped how bad Hamas actually are. I say that as someone who used to support Hamas. To anyone seeing this tweet who doesn't know me, I used to be an Islamist extremist. I genuinely believed all the bad stuff about Hamas, and it was lies from Israel." Well, let's get the views now of the man himself. Great to have you in the studio, Sohail. Thank you for joining us. How did you get sucked into being a Hamas supporter?
See, it started at a very young age. I was radicalised from the age 6 onwards, which some people might find surprising. You don't think of people being radicalised at such a young age, but I was. And I was raised with this hate-filled ideology whereby I believed Britain was the enemy. I believed that non-Muslims are in a perpetual war against Muslims. It's just the standard extremist Islamist kind of ideology that I was just raised in.
Was it family members or friends or people you didn't know that were grooming you in this way?
It was my parents, in fact.
Right.
They had themselves become extreme.
Yeah. What did this group get you to do? I mean, did you actively participate in any way? Did you attend meetings? What was your sort of role within this grouping?
Absolutely. I wasn't involved in any sort of group per se. I was always kind of on my own. So I never officially joined a group as such, but I believed entirely in the ideology.
And were you online reading materials? And
Absolutely.
And also were you communicating with others online about your beliefs?
Yes, unfortunately, and I'm very ashamed to say so. I did have a role to play in spreading this ideology. And that's something that I will take with me to the grave.
How would that manifest itself in terms of you having spread the ideology? What did you do?
So in college, for instance, I was very well known in the Islamic society. And I convinced a lot of people to become extremists like me. I didn't kind of say anything about terrorism. There was no support for violence in terms of my convincing others. But it was the rest of the extremist ideology. That was what I was pushing.
The idea that the West is the enemy.
Exactly.
And that you are either a believer or an infidel.
Yes.
What are the goals of Hamas, given the fact that you were embedded in its ideology, if not proactively within the group, but just the ideas of Hamas? What is their goal?
Their goal is to eliminate Israel, wipe it off the map. They do not want any sort of negotiation. They do not want a two-state solution. They don't want a solution at all. The only solution they are for is wiping Israel off the map, and that will involve genocide.
How much support do Hamas have among Palestinians? Is that question even possible to answer?
It's very difficult to answer because obviously you can't kind of study and do polling data in the Gaza Strip with Hamas in charge. But from what I've seen and from what I've gleaned, especially from friends that live in the Gaza Strip, it is very widespread.
And what was the trigger that inspired you to walk away from this ideology?
It was a number of things, but chief among them, it was my understanding evolutionary biology. Might sound strange.
So science saved you?
Science did indeed save me. But I realized that contradicted my entire ideology. And I was forced then to change. My entire world just unraveled.
Because you learnt about the origins of humanity via nature, and this contradicted the theology preached by the likes of Hamas.
It wasn't just that, but there were other incidents too. For instance, once I went to a Jewish home. I was selling a computer to them. And the little toddler, they had a little kid, came up to me and suddenly just became attached to me. And the parent said, he wants to play with you. So I was really young. I sat down and started playing with his toy cars. And his parents were looking on what was happening and smiling. And I remember looking across at them and thinking, I hate them, but they don't hate me. In fact, they're trusting me with their child. And that changed a lot for me.
Are Israel right that Hamas need to be eliminated, or is there another way?
Honestly, as long as Hamas is in power, there will be no peace. They just categorically will not be. I mean, with all the firing of rockets and causing Israel to respond and retaliate, it's just a perpetual cycle of violence. And there is no strategic sense to what Hamas is doing, because it's hurting the Palestinian people. It's hurting
and killing them, of course.
Exactly.
Of course, critics of Israel would argue that Israel has a case to answer for its treatment of the Palestinian people. What would you say to that?
I would say that before other people got involved internationally, I would kind of caution against that, because often this conflict is viewed in black and white terms, and a lot of people kind of lose their minds over it. They have a caricature idea of it, of good guy versus bad guy.
And it's very tribal.
Exactly, it's very tribalistic. And the conflict is very complicated. It's got multiple facets to it.
What have you been through personally on this journey? How much of an impact has it had on you as a young person, being sort of sucked into this ideology and then leaving it? Tell me about that journey for you.
Oh, that journey. Honestly, rejecting my former ideological beliefs, my extremist beliefs, was the hardest thing I've ever done. And honestly, I don't think I will ever do anything as difficult as that in my entire life. Because I had to risk the possibility that I might make the wrong choice and then burn in hell forever. I had that genuine fear.
Like leaving a cult.
Exactly. It was very much like a cult.
And have you suffered pushback from relatives or friends as a result of this move away from this ideology?
That's a good question. In fact, everyone pretty much abandoned me when I kind of came out of the ideology, when I, showed my true ideas. Everyone just left me.
So you did it alone?
I did it alone.
And are you in touch with your family now, your parents even?
No, not really. The relationship is non-existent.
And would you say that they are still in that rabbit hole of the ideology of hate and of Hamas's beliefs?
From what I'm hearing, yes.
Do you hope at some point you could reconnect with your family? Is there any hope of that?
Honestly, given that given the fact that I'm so diametrically opposed to their views, I wouldn't want to get back in touch with them.
Have you feared for your safety as a result of this move, and especially being brave enough to come on channels like this and tell your story?
Yes, it's always a concern, but I've thought about it, and I came to the conclusion that regardless of what happens to me, I have to do something. I have to serve my country. Previously, I wanted the downfall of Britain. Now I'm a proud British patriot. And I want this issue to be resolved. It's far too dangerous, far too severe, and far too embedded.
Israeli troops are now crossing into Gaza. We're expecting casualties, we're expecting bombings, we're expecting armed combat. Do you support the actions of Israel right now? Because there are many politicians in this country and elsewhere calling for a ceasefire.
See, on an emotional level, I do want the fighting to stop, because seeing the human suffering affects me.
And you want supplies to get through like we all do.
Exactly. But on a rational level, Israel has no choice but to respond to this attack. If they don't respond, Hamas will keep pushing and will do something worse next time. In fact, this is we've got a lot of evil options, and essentially we have to choose the lesser of the two evils. And the lesser of the two evils is you respond to Hamas, there will be civilian casualties, but in the long run, you save more lives.
You're a remarkable guy. Congratulations on your journey, because you've clearly chosen a more positive outlook now and less about hate and
Absolutely.
destroying another group of people because of their
Yes.
race. It's amazing courage, and thank you for telling your story. You're a bit of a genius as well, aren't you? First of all, Open University, was it a maths degree?
Maths and physics.
Maths and the easy subjects, maths and physics.
Very easy subjects.
And then you got into Cambridge University, and you're now doing immunology, is that right?
That's correct. I'm doing 2 part-time degrees at both institutions.
Oh, you're a busy guy. Well, look, and I wish you really good luck with your degree. And next time, why don't you come on, let's talk about COVID, shall we, just for old time's sake?
Absolutely.
You've chosen a very sort of topical degree to be doing, haven't you?
Indeed.
For the next pandemic, maybe. Listen, great to have you in the studio. Thank you for telling your story. Sohail Ahmed, I think you'll agree, a remarkable guy.